are back. It is the Woodward Sports Network, and it is Woodward Nights with Booner and Broder. We appreciate you guys all locking in with us tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Huge night. It's Victory Tuesday. It is Halloween, and most of all, what you guys all are probably here to listen to and talk about, it is the trade deadline day. And Broder, Ted Lasso, Brad Holmes only made one move, and I'm sure he did not make the move that everyone was pleased about. I can guarantee you that. Last week, we went over our rankings of, like, what do you want to see Brad Holmes get? Number one, I think we all could agree with. I think me and you had the same list: DN, corner, and then I think it went to like running back. And at that time, that was before Jameer. I think now I would say not running back. I think maybe I would go. I don't know.
Hey, maybe you go offensive line, like add another depth piece. Who knows?
Those are the two, though. I think a very well-known thing around the NFL, or not just in Detroit, was, hey, we need to go get an edge rusher. You need to do that. And there were multiple guys available, Broder. I know over in Washington, you had Montez Sweat available. You had Montez Sweat. Drawing a blank right now. Chase Young. I don't know. That was the biggest one, too. Leonard Williams was available. There were dudes available at the deadline today. And going into today, no one knew who was going to get them. And all we knew was, hey, you could probably get one of these guys for a second or a third. And we knew that. Everyone, it was well known that the Lions needed this piece to be able to kind of move forward and contend. Because that is what contenders do. And guess what happened throughout the day today?
What?
The Philadelphia Eagles this week got a piece. The 49ers got a piece. The Seattle Seahawks got a piece. And the AFC, the Buffalo Bills went and got a piece, who are a team that's looking to take a step and contend this year. There are teams in the NFC. When you look at the top 5 teams in the NFC, Broder, what do you think of? I think of the 49ers. I think of the Seahawks. I think of the Eagles. And I think of the Detroit Lions. And then you can add in the Cowboys. This is a problem I think that we had going into today. Is you had to make a move to bring in a defensive end, because worst case scenario that happens, one of these other teams were going to get them. And guess what happened? Worst case scenario happened. The 49ers went out and got Chase Young. The Eagles went and got a huge secondary piece. The Seahawks went and got Leonard Williams. And guess what? Guess who's in the NFC North? And I know they're not contenders, but guess who went and got Montez Sweat?
The Bears.
The team that we all hate, the Chicago Bears. Worst case scenario, in my opinion, Broder, and to me it comes down to this. Was Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, were they so confident? Where are they at in their timeline? That's how I looked at it. Because they had second and third round picks to give up. Where are they at in their timeline? Were they like, hey, you know what? Maybe this year we can't go get the NFC. Maybe we can't get the Super Bowl. You know what? Hey, we have such a big lead in the North. Maybe we can go get the North. We know that. But were they like, hey, you know what? The NFC isn't in our reach. The Super Bowl wasn't. To me, you make that move, you're right there. If you go get Chase Young and take him away from the 49ers, you're right there with the 49ers. Before it was like this a little bit. You get Chase Young, you're there. And to preface all this before I go to you, Broder, I don't want the people to be like, oh, Booner, like, you're hating on him. You don't think they can win. No, I'm trusting Brad Holmes with this. I'm going to make that very clear. If Brad Holmes has done everything right so far. If he did, I said this a couple at the draft when he picked Jahmyr Gibbs number 12 and he took Jack Campbell, and we all were like, "What are you doing?" A day later, D-Mac told me in the back, "Has he made a bad move yet?" No. All right, I'm gonna trust him. Same thing here. Brad Holmes, you didn't go out and get someone. I trust you that you think that they can win a Super Bowl with their current roster they have, and that's where I'm at with it.
Other than Michael Brockers, that was not the best move.
There's some sprinkled within there, but big moves like this, he has been pretty spot on. I'm trusting that Brad Holmes. That's where I've kind of fell on it, because the first couple hours I was pretty mad. Like I was like Easy was when he came up on the heavyweights, because that was fresh for him.
Yeah, you guys are crazy.
That was fresh for him. I felt bad though for the heavyweights, because it's like you get that information, it's fresh. You have to get up here and you have to do it. It's fresh. I had a couple hours to think about this, Broder.
No,
are we on the same page with that?
Yeah. Well, first off, there's 2 buttons I never like to hit. It's the snooze and the panic button. And I don't think all this panic that the Lions can't contend this year, I think is crazy. The path to get there is certainly harder. And I don't think that these moves were all that. Brad Holmes didn't make a move because he's planning for the future or conserving capital or something. I think he truly believes, first and foremost, before that these guys still they have the talent to compete for a Super Bowl. It's just going to be that much more difficult. The path would have been easier if you had a Chase Young, if you had a Montez Sweat, if you had a Leonard Williams or a Patrick Surtain, but they didn't go get him. So I'm thinking they are banking on their coaching staff developing these younger players so that they continue, or that you got your hand raised.
Yeah, I probably should do what Easy did and close the chat, but there's just
the chat is
there's a chat that
he closed the chat.
Mike M said this could blow up in Holmes' face and be like another Jalen Carter type situation. So we will see. First of all, Mike M, the Jalen Carter situation isn't blowing up in anyone's face. Jahmyr Gibbs just had 180 yards yesterday. Sam Laporta is one of the best tight ends in football. You don't get those guys if you go get Jalen Carter. That's a fact. Am I wrong, anyone? Am I wrong?
Wait, what would you say?
The whole Jalen Carter thing. He said he could blow up like it's a Jalen Carter situation.
Oh yeah. Well, this is completely different.
It is, but I've already gotten that scenario multiple times on Twitter as people bringing up Jalen Carter. It's like, hey, listen, Jahmyr Gibbs just had 180 all-purpose yards, the best running back in football this week, and Laporta is a top 5 tight end in the NFL. So let's throw the Jalen Carter thing out of the train with this.
Well, I'm going to bring him up next segment.
I'm gonna have to. If it's about that, I'm gonna have to. To debunk it.
No. I just think they're planning on these guys. They must know or have the confidence that James Houston's healthier than maybe we think. He's going to be back sooner. Josh Pascal's going to stay healthy and come back and make a difference on that defense. C.J. C.D. Deuce comes back and adds the edge that he adds to that secondary and the versatility, to whether it's him or Brian Branch. You can do more things with that secondary with them back. So I just think there wasn't anything out there that was compelling enough. And I know there is a totally another side to this, because maybe you push your limit a little bit more to bring in a Chase Young, to bring in a Montez Sweat, but I don't know. I just don't think he was willing to sacrifice what their vision of this team, how they do it in Allen Park, how he and Dan Campbell do it. I don't think they're willing to sacrifice any of that. And whether that's right or wrong is another story. But to me, I don't think they were ever going. I don't think Chase Young was ever going to be a Lion. And there was an article that came out earlier this morning from a beat writer in Washington that covers the Commanders and talked about the concerns of his discipline. He's a phenomenal player, and it wasn't even about his injuries. It was his discipline, and that's. To me, that's not the type of guy that Dan Campbell wants in the locker room. I don't want to take a shot at his character. I'm thinking more his discipline on the field, practice, all of that. It is character, but I don't know if he's a good or a bad guy. But it's what does he bring to the team other than sacks? And right now, a lot of Lions fans, and there were moments I felt it too, you take the sacks and deal with a little bit of the other stuff. But this early in the rebuild, whatever we want to call it, and I know they're here. The rebuild is over. They're here, but I don't think they're willing to sacrifice their future.
We have to remember, too, there's two things I'm going to hit on with this, too. You have to remember, one, the Detroit Lions weren't supposed to be where they're at right now. Brad Holmes has done such a good job as the GM and Dan Campbell's been such a great job building the culture that they're way ahead of schedule of any NFL rebuild. That's a fact. That's very well known. So Brad Holmes he knows what he's doing. Now the other side of it, and this is kind of on Twitter and social and just Lions fans out there right now, is there's like this group of Lions fans and people over here and who think it's like, if you not slander, but go at Brad Holmes and be like, why didn't you make a move? They're like, oh, you're a bad person because you're questioning Brad Holmes.
Oh, yeah, no.
And it's like, no, that's not the case at all. You're allowed to question Brad Holmes. You're allowed to be like, hey, why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that?
100%.
If I make a decision in my life, it's not just, oh, yeah, Booner, go ahead. Like, hey, dude, you're doing a great job. Go ahead. Like, no, Brad Holmes is a human. He's going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
To me, it's like an open, like very open door where the 49ers just got the players that we've been comping to come to the Detroit Lions for weeks. The Bears just went and got a player that we've talked about for weeks to come to the Detroit Lions. The Seahawks did the same thing. The Phillies,
I like the
Eagles,
moves.
The Bills. These teams went out and did the players you wanted. So for the people on Twitter who are like, oh, don't go at Brad Holmes. Oh, why are you guys mad about this? You can be mad and you could still trust in Brad Holmes going forward.
Yeah.
Because I still think this team can go and compete for a Super Bowl. And that's what I want very well known, is you can be on both sides here and you can question it and say, man, like, how did you let the 49ers get that? Like, what are we doing here? And then you could be like, you know what? Brad Holmes has done such a good job. There's a reason why there's that new saying. You guys remember this saying? The brand new Lions.
Booner never loses.
Booner never loses brand new lines. There's a reason there's that new saying. It's because things like this can happen, and they can still go win the Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Dat Crazy White Boy 620 said in the chat, Holmes equals Iserman. Trust the plan. We got to trust Brad Holmes. And there's one thing that Brad Holmes has that these other teams who did add pieces don't have at their disposal, and it's the schedule coming up. That if you can look at it in a different way, think of that as an asset. I know you can't, it's not a player, it's a schedule. Just think of that as an asset that the Lions have as an advantage over the other teams, and how this coaching staff and how this front office manages that, whether it's making sure guys get healthy, managing their starters down the stretch. If they are going to win the NFC North, which we all believe they're going to do, they still got to go do it. But we believe the path is there. Now it's how do you utilize this easy schedule to their advantage? So come playoff time, they're the healthy team. They're the rested, the energetic team. Wow, the 49ers, Eagles, whoever comes to Ford Field, they got to be going for this number 1 seed now and worry about the playoffs after.
And I think in here, the one, I don't know the name, Corbin. So it's okay.
Corbin.
It's okay to question Brad Holmes, MCDC, etc., but don't act like you know what happened behind the scenes. And I'm with you on that, actually, because